minutes for starting on time, and I apologize. We had an executive session that went a few minutes longer than I anticipated. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of the Town of Reedfield for September 10th, 2018. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everything's been approved, Catherine, already. So we don't have there's no fresh review. It would just be a public vote on those items.
Okay.
But if you need them, I can get them.
Nope.
Thank you.
trying to be ready.
We're in executive session to discuss legal matters relating to a land use issue that I suspect a lot of people are here in regards to. I want to just simply stay up front. That was the last item on the agenda, not by any particular design, to consider any legal or administrative action pursuant to that executive session. There isn't any that will be pursued in relation to that at this time. We see the process as moving forward with the planning board, continuing its deliberation and giving us their recommendation. We did meet with legal advisor tonight, and we will, pending further actions down the road, we will, or information, we believe that this particular process is where it should be. It's sitting in front of the planning board. The planning board has articulated what they're going to do to give us a good recommendation, and they've held a public hearing, and so that's where things stand. I do know some people probably wanted to speak about this tonight. We do have a section in our communications for members of the Reedfield residents to speak, or Reedfield taxpayers to speak, and we'll do that at that point. If somebody wants to speak to that particular issue, they're more than welcome to do so. I'll be a little bit more generous with time at that point, but we are doing the regular business of the town, and we have a full agenda, so we'll proceed on that basis. So we'll start with 19-022, which is the minutes of the Select Board meeting of August 13th, 2018. The minutes are in the packet. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of August 13th, 2018.
I'll second.
And you're approving those as presented, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you.
I'm abstaining due to absence.
Yes, you were absent. Rare, we're usually a full board. We'll move on to warrants. Do we have all of these warrants here?
They're in here, but some of us, Catherine was away, so.
They've all been signed, Eric said, so we don't have any reason to have them here to sign, but we do need to go over them for the public.
Let's do that.
All right, so we had warrants 10 and 11. There was 10, 10A and 10B and 11. One was a regular warrant, and 2 were for just state fees, and number 11 was for payroll. The total was $470,723.61. That included 1 payment to the school district, which is approaching $300,000.
Close to per
Yeah,
month.
296. Okay. Those were all signed by the appropriate number of select board members, 1 for the state fees and 3 for the others. And I believe that is all that's in here. Is that correct? No, there was a second one that was for the Kennebec Regional Development Authority for $12,224.27. That was a first part payment.
And we did not buy a mountain. The Appalachian Mountain Club did trail work for us for $28,952 on 2 properties.
On August 20th, there was warrant 8 and 8A and B, and warrant 9, again, a regular warrant, 2 state fees. Those are the registration fees that come out every week that we send off to the state, as well as 1 for payroll. The 4 of those totaled $87,504.58. and they were signed either by 3 members of the select board, or in the case of the state fees, by 1 person. And there was no school payment in there, which is why it was considerably less.
Do I have motions in regards to these warrants?
I move that we accept the warrants 10A, B, and 11, 8, 8A, B, and 9 as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the warrants as spoken in the motion. Any discussion on that? All in favor? So are there any other warrants here that we need to look at?
55 and 56 from the prior
55 and
fiscal year.
56.
Are these the last two?
These are the last 2 from that fiscal year,
This
yes.
is the end of the end of.
The bitter end, yeah, it took quite a while.
So I had highlighted that. So those were payments to the state that came from fees collected during the fiscal year 2018. Is that why it's a warrant for 2018 and not 19?
Let's see, well, so the warrant 55, warrant 56 was KRDA, so that was the prior year assessment for the First Park.
Okay.
And the Catherine went over, and then 55, if I can find it in here.
It was a regular warrant.
Yes, that was a regular
That's what it
warrant with a $2,400 payment for assessing. Those were the last 2 months of the assessor's contract for
Okay.
the fiscal year.
Thank you. Did I take a motion on that? I don't believe so.
I'll
No.
make a motion to approve.
55 and 56?
Yes, we already did 56, so 55. Well,
Well, we didn't do it as.
I talked about it, we didn't do it, 55 and 56.
55 and 56 as presented.
Okay, and we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to Select Board Communications. Do any members of the Select Board have anything they would like to share?
I do.
Go ahead.
We would like to have trunk and treat Halloween, but the town office is open till 6. Would you prefer that I get in touch with, say, the Union Meeting House and see if we can have it in their parking lot?
And what's the event exactly?
In Halloween, that people come with their vehicle, open the trunk and
Oh,
decorate
okay.
it, and the kids
Uh-huh.
trick or treat. They already do something
Yeah.
at the library and the meeting house. The trail is lit up. They could go back to the meeting house. We thought they could walk down the sidewalks to the town hall, but you're open, so tell me how you want me to handle this.
So this is during daylight hours?
Yeah, it's not daylight yet.
It's Wednesday and we're open until 6.
Yeah. Excuse me.
I mean, one option could be the fairgrounds as well. It would give us plenty of space, and if it is daylight hours, it certainly could be accommodated. But we might want to put up something on Church Road to identify that we have pedestrian traffic.
Well, we kind of wanted to keep it without crossing any roads or walking on any roads.
Yeah, okay.
If we have to have the town office open till 6, I'll get in touch with the Union Meeting House and see if we can use their parking lot. Then everybody would be on the trails
Yeah.
in that section of town.
I think it'd be a great idea. It would give the Union Meeting House some exposure as well to
Yeah.
the public.
Okay, then I'll do that. I'll get in touch with them.
I think the school does a pumpkin thing where they put pumpkins along the trail.
Yeah, the
as well.
Maple School does that.
Right,
They
the
put
Maple Tree
pumpkin-
School.
Yeah, so that would be part of it also.
So that would be very fitting.
Other board members have items? I do. I just simply want to say that I know we've been in the news lately, and you probably have read different comments online or comments that have appeared on Facebook and everything. I just simply want to say that our town officers and staff are doing a job, and that I would like everybody to please respect the job that they're doing. They don't do it out of any personal motivation. They do it out of their role and their job description to enforce the ordinances of the town. We have a little ways to go on a process that all of us are respectfully involved in, and our town officers will continue to do their jobs. And I just ask that people be respectful and not attribute different motivations to them that are that you wouldn't want to be have attributed to yourself. So that's the only statement I have, and I hope people will take that to heart. With that, we'll move on to town staff reports. Eric?
All right, I will start off with my town manager's report and then move on to the treasurer's report. Try to keep them brief here. I will start by talking about maintenance and infrastructure. Road striping is complete, and we do have some handwork to be finished up with that, but the long lines are complete. We have crack sealing that will occur in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We were hoping to get that done before the striping, but it doesn't always work out that way. Gravel road work is underway. Gay Road is complete, and work has begun on Loose Road. We have put down base gravel at 2 locations, about 200 to 300 foot in length. So anybody traveling on Loose Road will notice a couple of very rough patches, one right by the railroad tracks, and one right by, is it Warren's farm? I'm trying to remember his name. But right by the farm as you get closer to the next paved road over. So that's underway. We will be adding a roughly 2-inch surface treatment to that road. Starting the end of next week, we'll be adding thousands of tons of material to that road to make the surface smooth and travelable once again. So that roughness is just temporary. Let's see. Moving on, so major base preparation has been done at the transfer station. That's also quite rough. If paving bids are accepted this evening, then finished gravel will be installed prior to putting the asphalt down. And the main reason to do that is that rough surface, it's not good to put asphalt down because you have a lot of void and you end up putting down more asphalt than you really want or need to. So it does cost a little extra to smooth it out, but it's a better outcome all around, cost-wise and final product-wise. The Maranacook Lake Outlet Dam project appears to be on schedule with no major change orders anticipated for this fall. Winthrop was and is considering a number of possibilities, but my belief is that the cost and scheduling of doing a change order at this point just aren't practical for them. So we'll watch it and see for another probably a few more weeks, but I think that we're headed to the anticipated spring schedule that we had originally began with. So.
Can I ask you one thing?
Sure.
Has the transition, I know Ryan is getting done. Who is the new town manager? Is he still doing it?
Ryan is still managing that project and will essentially until it's completed or until they have a full-time replacement. I believe they're working on getting or already have an interim, but I don't know the status of that exactly.
Okay. I was just curious how.
But Ryan is staying on to manage this
Right.
project because of the value and his institutional knowledge on it.
Great.
Let's see, the Maine Municipal Bond Bank has approved our $160,000 in borrowing, and that's on the agenda tonight to move ahead with the first few steps of that process. We have more that will come later, but we're getting the first of that done. Brushwork has been ongoing, but it has been done in a limited capacity due to staff shortage, and we will be once mowing thins out, moving on much more actively to brush cutting and culvert work as we do in the fall typically, especially once we get that other person back on. And speaking of that, we are looking for a full-time general services maintenance position, and that position is being advertised internally. The internal deadline is I think Wednesday. So after that, we will be accepting applications from the general public. So if you know anybody that might be interested in maintenance work in the town, we do have a full-time position available, union with good pay and excellent benefits. Let's see, I prepared a staff report for the proposed zoning change centering on 26 Millstream Road, and I did present that report to the planning board last week, and it's included in your packets tonight for future reference. as a staff proposal. The beach is closed for the season, and I want to thank Rob Kincannon for his work and the Reed Field Rec Board for their work in making this a very successful year despite a challenging transition this spring. We had a long-time helper get done, and we all had to kind of scramble to pick up the slack, but I want to thank those folks especially for what they did to make it a success this year. It looked great, and we had some fun new events. Moving on to the transfer station, single-sort recycling contamination rates remained very low throughout August. We had probably 0 to 5% in our loads going to EcoMaine, which was a low enough threshold where we did not receive any penalties. So I do want to thank everybody that helped make that happen by paying attention to what goes in your recycling. It does make an impact, and I really appreciate that because it helps staff and it helps everybody's tax bill.
May I ask a question about this?
Sure.
Does for example, RSU 38, do they use the recycling at the transfer station here? Is that a recycling that's a separate entity?
I don't believe they do.
Okay.
And I'll have to check in on the specifics of that, but I don't believe that they bring their recycling to us.
Okay.
At least it certainly doesn't appear that way from the commercial haulers that I've seen come in.
Gotcha.
So, but I will check in on
I was
that
just
for you,
curious.
Dennis.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. RSU 38, recycling. Okay. We will work to schedule brush grinding this fall, October or November, so it is helpful if you're doing any tree trimming work, try to get that stuff in prior to the colder part of the fall so we can get it ground up and have a clean slate, have more room to put snow during the winter months. And final thing on the transfer station is that a new community salt and sand structure will be built at the transfer station to replace the lean-to that was failing for several years and finally gave in this summer. So we're looking to make that a nice new and accessible structure. And I want to remind folks that we do have the Sand Buckets program through the Age Friendly Committee and the Masons. And if you are interested in that, please give us a call early on so we can schedule, get this stuff out to you before we have that first inevitable slick of ice on your driveway. Announcements, I have just one, and that is that Sunday, September 16th at the transfer station from 10 to 2, we will be starting our wood cutting for the Community Wood Heat Program. And we're looking for a number of volunteers with saws, but also a number of volunteers to just handle the wood, help bring it from the pile to the saws and bring it away from the saws to the sorting area. We'll be following up that the next Sunday on the 23rd, September 23rd, with splitting of that wood. So we're going to try to move through this stuff fairly quickly, and we are looking for folks with wood splitters to volunteer for that, and also anybody that's interested in helping, again, handle all this material. So if you have any questions or would like to volunteer, please just contact the town office. And this is the first year we're doing that program. I'm pretty excited about it, and I think it's going to be a great benefit. Any questions on my report?
No, thank you,
Okay.
and thank you for that announcement on the wood project, that's great.
All right, moving on to my treasurer's report. Check reconciliation was completed through August 31st, 2018. Our accounts are in balance with our bank statements, and no unusual activity, I said other, but no unusual activity was reported or observed. As far as comments go, we should be around 17% for revenues and expenditures, seasonal variations accepted. As usual, we do see a bit more variation in the month-to-month comparisons than we typically see with the year-to-date comparisons. A few noteworthy areas are protection. We did put a bunch of money into personal protective gear for the fire department, as well as a number of small operating expenses. That's one reason for a bit of a peak there. Roads and drainage, I did talk about Gay Road and Loose Road being the primary areas there. Capital expenditures in August, included the replacement of the mower, the disc mower for the John Deere, so we could conduct our roadside mowing. That payment came through. We also have a down payment down in for the sidewalk machine replacement. That's the Bobcat that's replacing our holder. So very happy to be moving that direction quickly so we don't have to struggle through another winter.
Eric,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt.
no problem.
Do we have the Bobcat, and have we gotten rid of the holder yet?
We do not have the Bobcat yet, and we are in the process of getting rid of the holder.
Thank you.
Did you find a suitable outlet?
We're probably going to have to do an open RFP for it. We talked with the folks that put in bids for the Bobcat for the replacement. Nobody that really had a serious interest in taking that machine just because of the issues that we've had with it, and it's an older model. It's not the preferred
Gotcha.
make anymore. People don't use holder very much just because it's a lot of investment for a specialized purpose. So, let's see, and okay, and we did see some lower than expected tonnages, or at least, bills for transfer station. That may be a result of reduced tonnages, but I need to look into that more closely. I believe more likely than not that it has to do with the fact that we're just a couple weeks out on our billing. So August tonnages will be coming in September. We haven't been billed for those yet. And when we do close out the fiscal year, the July tonnages are accrued to the prior fiscal year. So we have a little bit of a gap. So that's one reason why we have a bit of a lag in those numbers, in case anybody wanted to know why we're looking so healthy in that area, even though we really aren't quite as healthy as that might show. And that's really all I had for my treasurer's report. I'm happy to take any questions additionally.
Are there any questions in treasurer's report for Eric? Seeing none?
If, when we approve the paving of the transfer station road, when would that be done? Did they give you any?
That's scheduled for this fall. The bid documents did.
This fall?
Yeah, and my discussions with the proposers was that if they had a spring timeline, that I would hope that they would either put it out as an alternate or identify that on their bids. We did have one bidder identify a spring timeframe. However, they do not appear to be the low bidder. So my expectation is that this will be done this fall.
And we do have this in the agenda later tonight.
We do, yes. Yep.
Great. We'll move on to boards, committees, commissions, and departments. All we happen to have this week is the Cobussy Watershed District meeting minutes from July 10, 2018. They're in your packet. I'm sure everyone has read them. Thank you very much to the Cobussy Watershed District. We'll move on to public comment.
I think
How many-
we have appointments first.
We have appointments first? No, we do that afterwards.
Okay,
Yeah, it's public comment first. Yep.
Yep.
okay. You're right. Very sorry.
How many people are here who are residents who want to comment on the, on the process that we have regarding the land use? Just 1, 2, 3? Okay.
4.
4. Okay, that's fine. Is there anyone else here that wants to comment on other issues that you would normally bring to this meeting and just simply address the select board? Because I would like to do that. Okay. Seeing none, we have 10 minutes, so 4 people wanted to talk, so let's talk for a couple minutes. If you're addressing the select board, we ask you to be respectful of the time and of the board itself. Who would like to come up? And please introduce yourself, and like I would introduce myself, Bruce Burgoyne from the Fog Road. Somebody's got to go first. You know, I don't get to pick that. Thank you.
I'm happy to go first. Matt Nazar, Old Kent Hill Road.
Thank you.
The question that I have, I guess, is with respect to process and how this moves forward. I understand certainly that the petition item is at the planning board right now. They'll make a recommendation back to the select board, and the select board will likely make some sort of recommendation at that point.
Correct.
I guess my question is the select board intending to move on any enforcement action between now and then? Or can we expect the the situation to continue to exist as it does?
I think the situation on that is, if there is any appropriate enforcement action, it will take place.
Okay.
And I know you want to narrow me to a very specific answer, but we do have the planning board that's looking at this. We have the petition process. They've essentially merged. And at this point, we're waiting for that recommendation back from the planning board. The town officers will continue to address matters pursuant to our ordinances.
Okay, all right. Sorry, excuse me. I'm not sure that I really quite got an answer, but okay. Because I'm not looking for a yes or no, I'm just looking for a when. And I guess what I'm suggesting is that it may be some time before you hear anything from the planning board or make a decision yourself. And can we as a neighborhood continue to expect what has been occurring to continue to occur until you reach that point?
I'm being careful on how I answer that because I want to be fair to, there are two different issues that are involved in this.
I agree.
The first, and I think they're a little different from what you are thinking in your mind.
Maybe not.
The first is the property itself, okay? And the discussion about the use of it and the zoning of it and so on and so forth. The second issue, really, that no one has really addressed, I think, to any great degree, is that we do have processes in this town that need to unfold and take place. And whether it's on land use or any other ordinance, we have the public in this town that has supported it for a very long time. Land use policy has been voted in, comprehensive plans have been developed, every other ordinance has been supported, if you will, by town votes. So I'm being very careful about that. In terms of the people who are directly affected, I will do everything in my power not to have a dragged out situation.
Thank you. That actually.
Whether the rest of the board will agree with me on that, I'm not sure. I can't put a time period on it.
I do want to say that I appreciate the process that has to be gone through. It's, as I've said every time I've stood up, it is what my job is every day, to do, to essentially sit in a seat like your town manager sits in and follow process. Because everybody is afforded their rights in the community. And I want to make sure that I just understand the process. And that's the reason I asked the question the way I did, is I'd like to know how this is going to move forward.
Sure.
I'm not demanding that you move forward now. I'm simply asking how and when.
And you can demand if you wish.
Well,
Okay. Someone else, please. I think we were in a couple of minutes there. Thank you, sir.
that was 4, but you weren't with him.
What's that?
It was 4 minutes, but we had
It was 4
back and
minutes.
forth.
We did some back and forth. Okay, go ahead.
Stupid fly.
Hello, my name is Phil Tedrick. I've lived in Reedfield for 20-plus years. I've been a patron of the Reedfield Emporium for most of that time and greatly appreciated just the fact that it was there. I think the main thing that I would like to mention this evening is that having a house concert does not require any enforcement, because that's legal everywhere in the country. And because of some evolving changes in the music industry, it's becoming more common and more popular. And as far as I know, there's no limitations on the size of the living room where that occurs. And I'd urge you to research that a bit, and hopefully the answer to when there might be enforcement is not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for, I believe you sent an email in regards to that. Thank you for that as well. Someone else? I always get nervous when former select board members go to the
Well-
microphone.
Good evening to you all. My name's Will Harris. I live just down the road here. And having sat in your seat, the idea of the process is something I hold dear. I mean, I want to see the process carried out according to Hoyle. The catch is that in the meantime, as Matt says, what's being asked is already being done. And so there's an old sort of legal aphorism that says, a law without sanction is mere advice. So if you're going to have an ordinance and you're going to have a land use policy that has something that has some sort of teeth in it, I think you have to, at some point, sort of fish or cut bait. And it seems like the time for at least having a moratorium while the process works out is now. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate your comment, and it would be my wish that, and I'm happy to publicly state this, that while the request is on the table, that until the request is ruled on, that there was no activity. That's not the case, and I understand that. Anybody else who would like to speak? Are we all set? Should we move on?
No, we have one more.
Please.
Aaron Neely, Thundercastle Road.
Hi, Aaron.
No, I don't really have a heck of a lot to say, but just say as the process moves forward, I know there's hundreds of Reed Field townsfolk who signed a petition, and if and when that recommendation comes to you folks, I would love to see that the result of that be that the townspeople get to vote on it per the petition, and just like to see that happen in November if possible.
Thank you.
What happens. So anyway, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Obviously, we will be taking up that petition at some point, probably fairly quickly, and when we take that up, there'll be due public notice that that's the night we're going to vote on it.
I'm not a resident, can I speak?
That's really up to my board.
I'd rather just have input from residents tonight. We're not making any decisions here.
The planning board did have a public, yeah, they had a public, yeah, they had a public hearing, and so we're trying to conduct a town business, but, I wanted to make sure, I knew people came for this, so I wanted to make sure residents had an opportunity, or taxpayers, which Bob is, had an opportunity to speak. So Bob, did you want to speak before we?
I guess I'm going to speak.
Okay.
Bob Attar. I'm the reason for all of the commotion. But let's get down to some serious thing, because I think there's a time limit. How many minutes do I have?
3 or 4.
3 or 4, sure.
The longest
Four,
person is
okay.
4.
First, the claim that something has to be done to stop me from exercising the right of a resident shouldn't be something that this board is waiting to do. If a resident plays music in his house or invites others to play music, that is not illegal. If I sing, as I did last night with another person who joined me, not illegal. If we have 50 people there, not illegal. What is illegal? No one yet has ever come to me with a list of illegal activities that I've done, except once when they said I was guilty of doing illegal act. It was an illegal act of mass gathering. This is not an illegal act for a residence There is no illegal mass gathering for any resident. Not that we intend to do that. Ordinances about noise. If you read the ordinance, it specifically states, as the others, this does not apply. See, some people don't hear this. Does not apply to a residence. So if we play music, this is not applicable. Now, that doesn't mean that I, as a sane member of our society, would try to intentionally or even unintentionally harm anybody, any neighbor. And so if any neighbor were to come to me and say, you know, I think there was something a little wrong last night, I'd be happy to address that and we could talk about it. That's the role of a neighbor. So that you have those issues, and I hope that there'll be no action by the town to deny me of my rights as a resident. Second issue, there'll be a petition. The question is, will there be time enough for you what time is required before you must submit the petition, the warrant, or the ballot to Augusta so that petition can be included? There's a time limit in all this. And when will that be, and will you be able to deliberate enough to include that petition on the ballot?
You're asking me a question,
Yes,
so
I am.
I'm happy to answer it.
Great.
We have the petition. The petition would probably normally go to the regular town meeting, which occurs in June. We did create, by my own personal motion at the last select board meeting, an opportunity for things to go on the November ballot if the process was completed. Whether or not we will be ready at that point, I don't know. We're not dragging our feet or doing anything of that nature. We do know that the planning board is meeting later in this month. They'll give us an opinion, and then we'll have time to print absentee ballots for November if necessary. If not, then the June board meeting would be the appropriate place to entertain petitions that are deemed ready to go on the ballot.
So what time then does the planning board, at what time must they submit to you an answer before you can put that on the ballot? Is it the end of September?
I don't rule the planning board. Their deliberations are really dependent on their own time schedule.
I understand. They've said
Yep.
the 24th of September. Is that too late
For what?
for you to consider and then put that on the ballot?
For which ballot?
November ballot.
Actually, I'm not going to entertain questions about if or when we're going to put it on the ballot. What I've said, Bob, is that there is a process for doing that. We're going to be respectful of that process and respectful of you in that process, and that's where it's at. So I don't have really any further answer to give you.
I guess, may I say something?
Please do.
I guess this kind of goes to you as well as what some other people have brought up. It's not up to this board as the governing board of the town to bring enforcement action. That comes through the code enforcement officer and the town manager for what are deemed to be violations, if there are any, in any situation. And we are aware of those actions being considered, and we're aware of them when they occur. But we don't have to authorize them because they don't come from us. So asking this board to either enforce or not enforce any sort of enforcement is not appropriate because that's not something that we do.
I was just referring to what Bruce was saying earlier, and then he said he wouldn't drag his feet if there had to be something, and I can
Right,
understand.
well, and that, I think he was talking about the petition.
Oh, I see.
And the petition, I think you have two actions that are pending right now. You have something that's before the planning board, and you have a petition for something to go onto a ballot. And the timing for that is really dependent upon when the town receives a petition. And so if a petition is received in the winter or in the spring, there's probably plenty of time for it to go through all the proper channels and through committees and to be on the November ballot. When something's received in the middle of the summer, that shortens down the timeline. And that's not a timeline that we create, that's a timeline that comes when the petition is turned in. What Bruce, I believe, was saying is that being deliberate in the process is very important for you and for the abutters and for the town at large. And we don't tell the planning board when they're going to meet or how they're going to meet or when they're going to deliberate or when that report after their meeting is going to come back to the select board. So we really can't give you a timeline because we don't have one and we can't enforce one. I mean, we can't say to the planning board, well, you must meet tomorrow night and make a decision, because that's not how we have the town laid out. So that's the best I can kind of do to clarify for lots of folks, but I think the position of this board historically over the last year or so has been that we've tried to do things deliberately and responsibly, and that when action is necessary, then it takes place. And so if it is deemed that there is action necessary in this situation, it will take place.
No, I understand all that.
Bob, could you finish up in about a minute or so?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
I understood all that, Catherine, I did. The question really was a little more specific, and that was, if the planning board has already said they're going to be meeting and deliberating and concluding on the 24th of September, when is your next meeting scheduled? And will that be time enough? Because when I spoke to the people in the office, they said that you need 6 weeks before the election to submit a ballot. So it seems that this process will never happen, and the ballot will include the petition because of whatever the delays are and whatever the meeting schedules are. So that's what I'm looking at. There's no special meeting that's being set up for that, and in that way, it'll all be eliminated. That's basically it.
Thank you.
It's a way of eliminating it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank members of the public for their time they spent communicating with us and giving us some things to think about. We'll move on now to,
Sorry.
Get it?
I will
No,
never cross
but
her.
I scared it. It's a fly for everybody to know.
We'll move on to appointments, resignations, and reappointments, and we'll start with 19024. In your package, you have resignation from Matthew Guba to the Reedfield Enterprise Committee due to work relocation.
I would make a motion that we accept the resignation from Matthew Guba from the Reedfield Enterprise Commission with regret.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to accept that resignation with regret. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to consider the appointment of Charles Ed Bergman to the Planning Board. Is Charles Bergman here? He is not, so we cannot take that up, so table that. We'll contact him and ask why, not ask why, but
This is
ask.
this would be his first.
First,
It is first,
Yeah.
so we do need to talk to him. We'll consider the appointment of Ed Dodge to the Age Friendly Committee, 19026. Is Mr. Dodge here?
it is.
Mr. Dodge, would you please go to the microphone?
He had such a good time at the festival, he decided.
Appreciate that.
I really appreciate the work that you folks did to put that on.
Well, hey, thank you. Appreciate your help.
The pancake.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge.
Sorry.
The very first time around, somebody's appointed to a committee, we invite them to the select board to give you an opportunity to just say anything you would like to as to why you're applying perhaps or what you want to do, and to also any questions from the board itself. So please.
I'm a member of the Lafayette Lodge, Masonic Lodge, and the Masons had started the, I think they were called Handy Helpers, or it's called the Handy Helpers in Reedville anyway. And basically, the group started this to help older folks that had difficulties doing certain things, like lugging a pail of sand to put on their sidewalks, or even climbing a step ladder, screwing a light bulb, that type of thing. So it's not, the organization isn't to do professional things that a professional plumber or electrician could do, but it's just to help. And the gal who is the president of the organization, Romaine, she has done a great job organizing and so forth. And by me being a Mason, and it sort of started with the Masons, that I have a favorite saying, usually I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. But anyway, I was glad to help out. And there's a position called the associate, and that's what the one is I'm seeking. And mainly because my wife said, "You're not going to join any more organizations." If I'm just an associate, then maybe I'll slip through. But I do enjoy helping out and so forth, and that's the reason I'm there.
Yeah, thank you for volunteering. It's appreciated.
I'd like to make a nomination to appoint Ed Dodge as an associate to the Age-Friendly Committee for a commission beginning tonight and ending on 6/30/2020.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Mr. Dodge to the Age-Friendly Committee in the position noted. Any discussion?
I
Thank
just
you.
want to, oh, I'm
Please.
sorry. Yeah, I just want to say that Mr. Dodge and the Masons were so great during the festival. We were just talking about that. It was great coordinating community organizations to sort of start the day off. You were our first thing, and so it was awesome. So to have you be involved in more, even if it's associate, I appreciate it.
Anybody else? All in favor? Welcome aboard. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, or you can slide on out.
Thank you, Ed.
Wait a second. Hang on a minute. Thank you.
Is that ready for me?
It is. Sorry, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong Ed.
I think now we'll move to our proclamation for Constitution
She
Week.
just went downstairs.
She just went downstairs. Okay, so we'll hold on that.
For a moment.
She had to
Oh,
leave.
she did.
Okay.
Okay.
She's gone?
Boy, that was quick.
Well, that was,
There were three.
Oh, fan.
Okay, so there are three, in your packet is the proclamation for Constitution Week 2018, and I will just simply read the very first paragraph. Whereas our founding fathers, in order to secure the blessings of liberty for themselves and their posterity, did ordain and establish a Constitution of the United States. And this is for Constitution Week of September 17th through 23rd, to be recognized in the town of Reedfield, and that the Select Board would so recognize it. This will be the first year you don't see me ringing a bell with a Tri-Connor hat on, as I have in the past. I'm sorry
great.
about that.
he's so
But,
disappointed.
That's the way it goes. I move that the proclamation be declared.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the proclamation be declared for Constitution Week 2018. All in favor? Thank you.
All right. Constitution.
And I'm actually signing in the right slot because they put us in like positions, so
Yeah, it's nice.
we could maybe all do that.
It's nice of you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this point, we are entering into a public hearing which is set aside for 10 minutes. I doubt it'll take 10 minutes at all. The public hearing, which I declare now open, is to adopt appendices to regarding general assistance. And basically, the agenda for this public hearing is to allow any interested members of the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinance. It's in your packet. And actually, we're not doing a proposed ordinance. We're commenting on the index, if you will, which just simply establishes the rates allowed on general assistance. And then number 2, I end the public discussion and we move and adopt the appendices. So with that duly noted, is there anyone who would like to address or question or comment on the proposed appendices? There are none. So I will end the public discussion, my number 2. And will somebody please move to adopt the appendices in the form that you see in your packet?
I'll make a motion to adopt the general assistance appendices as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to make that adoption. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? I know that sounded like running through a couple of hoops, but in terms of governing, that's something we need to do and adopt each year, and that's the format for doing it. I guess we've done the first order of new business then.
And we'll have a signature sheet.
We have
We
a
all had to
signature
sign
sheet
that,
to
correct?
be signed. So 19028 is consider a liquor license application for Kentsville Fall Family Weekend. That application is in your packet. I think this is a customary event they've held annually.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So it's not something we're having a hearing on tonight. Nope. And no one's here from Kentsville? No one needed to be here.
No, this is a more or less routine annual
Right,
event.
I understand,
Yep.
in case anybody was here in regards to that. Could I have a motion in regards to that
I'll move
license?
we approve the application for the liquor license for Kents Hill School Fall Family Weekend.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve that liquor license for Kents Hill Fall Family Weekend. Since it's a limited license, it's only for a short period of time. So, all in favor?
I have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
The first time I got caught. Go
I'd
ahead.
just like to make note, once again, that this is taking place on a school campus, and that the expectation is that there will be no liquor served by or to underage people at this event, which is the plan.
Thank you. Duly noted.
I've been to quite a few of those, and they're
Very careful.
very well, controlled.
Let's proceed to vote. All in favor? Thank you. Consider awarding a contract for the paving of the
Sign that,
transfer
pass
station
along.
access road. Eric, your review and recommendation, please.
Yes, sir, thank you. I can get back to the right section. We did have a pre-bid meeting for this contract award that was mandatory. We had 4 contractors show up. All 4 submitted bids, which I was quite pleased with. The specification was clear. We were looking at paving the section of the transfer station access road that essentially runs from North Road through to the Y until we access that, that secondary loop that goes around. So tonnages were based on that area, and the base work was done this spring and summer. And we, as I mentioned earlier, will be doing some final grading before we put the asphalt down. That is going to be done separate from this paving contract, but I think it's important to note that. We had 4 bids. The low bid came in from All States Asphalt, and that low bid is based on the combination of the 3 areas that we were looking at, which were the 19 millimeter base course, the 12 millimeter surface course, and tack coat. 4. There's also a surface preparation component as well. So based on the estimated tonnages, which essentially you can break down to a per ton cost for all of these, that puts All States Asphalt as the low bid at $46,849.95. And that is significantly higher than what we had originally budgeted for this. We had budgeted $25,000 for the project. However, that was based on either 2 or 3 inch asphalt layout. And our engineers later on, after the budget process was completed, came forward with a recommendation for 4 inches of asphalt, which really does seem to be a strong recommendation and one that for a road of this type should be followed. So that's what we used for the bid, and that's one main reason why we have this increased cost, in addition to the price of asphalt being, $10 or $15 a ton more than what it was when we had done the original budget numbers. The bids came in fairly close, within 20% of the low bid, with 2 being quite close at 106 and 107%. That's a nice tight grouping, and that's what I would like to see whenever we do put something out to bid, because it means that we have some fairly competitive and fairly accurate pricing. So my recommendation at this point would be to accept the bid from All States Asphalt. And I do want to explain a little bit more about the overall funding for this, because I know that is a question. We do have...
You're way ahead of me.
Do you want me to keep going, or?
Oh, no,
no.
please do.
Okay, all right.
That was my question.
Sure,
He
yeah.
wants to know.
Well, I thought you might. So what we have is a capital reserve at the transfer station that has initially been funded by the town of Reedfield and in part by the town of Wayne in the past, with the town of Fayette now involved, and with the new, I say it's new, it's about 2 years old now, interlocal agreement. We are getting between $16,000 and $20,000 annually contributed between the 3 towns for capital reserves. So we have a reserve account that continues to be fed, so to speak. Right now, the balance of that account, and this is something of a year-end balance because we more or less accrue the revenue that we'll be receiving this fiscal year into that account at the start of the fiscal year. So the balance of that account right now is around $80,000, plus or minus, after we take care of expenditures for the prep work. This expenditure for the low bid would drop that 46,000 and change, we'll just say 50, because this was based on estimated tonnages. There could be some variation there, which leaves around $30,000 in the account, which is a healthy balance in itself, but I wanted to look further out and make sure that by doing this, we would not be overly or unduly depleting that account and limiting future work. So I did look at our 5-year comprehensive plan for the transfer station, and we do have some big projects coming out in the 5th year of that in 2023. However, one of the largest was the purchase of the backhoe, and I believe that if any of those smaller projects, we're talking maybe $100,000, $120,000 for the total expenditures for that 5-year period. And so with the money going in, and this coming out, that would leave us a little bit short for the 5-year plan, just straight, looking at it straight. However, if we were to finance any one of those larger expenditures, most likely the purchase of the backhoe, which would be $100,000 total, roughly, including about $50,000 from the transfer station, if that was financed, or if we were able to extend the life of, say, some of our containers for a few more years, it's quite likely and very foreseeable that we could easily accommodate this purchase and this capital project, which really is fairly immediate and fundamental given the concerns that folks have had over the past few years, and then the abysmal time we had this spring trying to keep that road in shape. So we've done the work. And I believe that we can, with a fair degree of financial responsibility, carry this out this fiscal year and not overburden future expenditures. I did also run this by both town managers in Fayette and Wayne, letting them know that while we wouldn't be asking for anything immediate or additional this fiscal year, we may be looking at slightly higher rates of savings for that reserve account in future years. This year, we actually dropped from an 8% of operating budget down to 6%. So with an expense like this that kind of pushes things a little bit further than we'd like, I very likely would be recommending during the budget process that we go back to that 8% or even perhaps a little bit higher. But we have means of working through this to get that right balance of revenue.
And what was the response from the two town managers?
They said pave it. They're both very eager, and they of course are concerned about the long-term impacts, but they understand that even if they're not a part of this in the future, this is Reed Field investing in Reed Field in our transfer station, and we would maintain that asset no matter what. So they're chipping in for as long as they will, but they certainly see this, and I see this as an improvement that stays in Reed Field, and we're fortunate to have others contributing to it at this point.
Well, so basically, the response is keeping fillings in the teeth of our two member towns are just as important as our own. Yeah, we really need to pave that road, and we've seen that. So you laid out a fiscal map of how we can do that. I appreciate that. I think you, I'm going to move that we proceed with the bid and direct the town manager to engage the services of Allstate's Asphalt as he recommended.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Now, is there any discussion?
No, I'm so glad that we're doing this. It was abysmal. And the transfer station is a cog of everyone in the town. And this one little thing could go really far into making that process better. So thank you.
Have we had experience with any of these four bidders previously, Eric?
We have, Wellman did do paving at the transfer station, and we had a small issue there with some butt joints that they then reground and fixed for us. Wellman has paved for us before. I'm looking at the wrong paper here, I'm looking at my email. Lane Construction, I have worked with them on Chebig Island. I've also worked with All States Asphalt on Chebig Island. State paving I've never had any experience with. All States, I will say they did a fantastic job on the islands, which is not an easy environment to work in. Also, they're well-staffed. Their management comes from folks who are out in the field, and their lead estimator and sales guy is former DOT, Maine Local Road Center, so very well trained and prepared for this. And one reason why I think that they came in with a low bid. So I have every confidence in Allstate's ability to complete this project well and to do it in a timely fashion.
Thank you, because I know that we do not have a policy of always taking low bid, but of taking what is the most appropriate package for the town. So I just wanted to be sure that we were doing that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there additional discussion? All in favor?
Great,
Okay,
you're going to make
thank
a lot of people happy.
Oh, I've been championing this for decades.
I don't know, I'm going to miss that.
Oh, thank you.
No, how fast do I have to go to run through the mire? I don't want to do that.
And not
every
get
month.
stuck.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to 19-030, which is to consider annual junkyard applications. Are there people here for that?
They're automobile graveyards, not
Automobile
junkyards.
graveyards. Well, junkyard is what I see on here. And I remember crawling with my dad under those 55 Dodges, pulling out untold pieces of metal to repair whatever the heck it was in that 55 Dodge.
Well, I'll say the junkyard phrase was mine, so I'll apologize for that if I offended anybody.
It does have both on the title. I
It's
just,
a big part of my youth. Anyhow, Eric, are you going to present on this, or are you going to ask Gary?
I'm going to ask Gary to do that, and
Please, Gary.
I'm going to run downstairs and get an additional piece of documentation
Thank
for the
you.
next item,
Gary.
if you excuse me.
certainly.
Thanks. Hey, Gary. Gary
Gary,
is our code enforcement officer. Oh, yeah.
I recommend that you sign these renewals. They've certainly passed the test or inspection. They're certainly coming forward with cleaner, better yards than when we first started. Been working with them to get some access for emergency vehicles into their yards. When I first started, you had big puddles, and in the wintertime there was frozen cobs and all that stuff. But as you see, there's certainly a lot of tonnage that's leaving the town, through the junkyards, and all their mercury switches and all that stuff are properly disposed of and contained in secure places.
Good, and I really do appreciate that recommendation and appreciate each of the graveyard owners working with us on that, and the code enforcement officer. It's really important, and I appreciate it. Can I have a motion in regards to this, please?
I'll make a motion to approve re-permitting of Ken's Drag-In Auto, owned by Ken and Mark Edgecombe, of Antique Auto owners Cyrus, Barbara, and Seth Whitcomb, and Lucas Auto Parts and Salvage, owned by Scott Lucas.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded
Fight
to
over it.
approve these permits as so duly noted. Any discussion on the motion?
And we are authorizing the select board chair to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sign them, actually.
Okay.
Just thank
How
you.
about that?
Thank you for doing the right thing and being honest with us, and I know Gary says the same thing, but we appreciate it. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you.
Next time you can ask to be put higher on the agenda since you sat through all of this.
Awful patient.
Yeah. Yep.
Is this a good moment for a stretch break since Eric's getting the papers?
Since Eric is getting something, we will have a 2-minute stretch break.
2 minutes.
Oh, thank you.
We're back in session.
All righty.
And we have one last item, which is to consider a loan agreement and other documents related to borrowing for the Maranaquit Outlet Dam. Again, just like the paving, this is one item we are happy to move forward on that has been sitting on agendas of this select board for a very, very long time. So I will let you go ahead and talk about the loan agreement and the bond.
All right, so this is a multi-part process as identified before. The borrowing has not happened yet, but is anticipated to. The loan agreement is one of the documents that we will be having you folks review and sign. I do need to get 3 originals signed, and the suggestion by the bond counsel is that they be signed by Bruce and myself. And then we have those notarized. The loan agreement essentially shows the terms of the agreement and what it would look like. There will be a final version that comes through that we will need to authorize. This is more or less just showing the general conditions that will apply and acknowledging that the town is aware of and accepts the responsibilities and debt and other criteria for reporting, which are many, and that we are able to move forward with the borrowing with the bond bank with full knowledge and acceptance of those terms. So I have 3 of these for Bruce and I to sign. If you folks authorize the execution of the loan agreement, so that would be one part or one separate motion depending. The other item, what I had to run downstairs for, is our resolution for borrowing. And this is the whereas and now therefore description of general acceptance of the borrowing for the $160,000 that we have for this project. And that would be I guess I would probably prefer to be a separate motion to accept the bond resolution and then have all 5 members of the board sign this. Both of these documents are in your packets. I had just misplaced my original of the bond resolution.
So, okay, so I was thinking we would just do one vote on the resolution and that then puts in effect everything else to be signed. So you're saying,
We could put it all into one motion, or we could just make 2 motions, because we have to
Okay.
authorize different signatures.
I mean, you could, well, yeah, I mean, however you
I
want
thought
to
they
do it.
were all recognized within the resolution itself, but I guess not. So the resolution would come first.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the resolution of the Select Board of the Town of Reedfield authorizing the sale of a $160,000 general obligation bond of the town as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to approve this resolution authorizing the sale of a $160,000 general obligation bond. And is there any discussion?
Just to note that that will be signed by the entire board.
Right, and that's how we affect it, is to fix our signatures. So my one question is not to exceed 6%. Where are our bonds right now?
Around 2.4.
Okay. So that 6% is in here is kind of a placeholder for a much lower number.
Exactly, and that's
Okay.
one of those many items that are not necessarily fully fleshed out in here, but this shows the form and structure of the bond. So, yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to
The loan agreement?
the loan agreement itself.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the loan agreement for the aforementioned bond and authorize the town manager to sign,
And
Town manager
Town
and
and select board chair.
select board chair.
That's exactly what I meant to say.
I'm sure it was. All of those, I
But
think.
did you second it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the loan agreement. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Does that satisfy everything we need to approve, or does this general obligation?
Does this need a date? There's no
Well,
date.
no,
on this.
they don't want it dated.
Okay, oh, it says approved up at the
Yeah.
top.
And then the loan agreement also not to be dated.
Okay.
So are we all set?
For this section, yes, I will be coming back to you once we have a final agreement with
Right.
real numbers.
Okay.
I guess I'd just like to mention on the record that this is the bond that was approved at town meeting by the town body in the amount that the town approved.
Actually, it's less than the amount the town approved.
It is.
And it isn't less than the amount.
177, it's for 160 because we did a good job saving over the last few years.
I don't, oh, sorry, maybe not now, because I know we're going, but I'd also point out that I know, for those that maybe the borrowing is not necessarily, I would point out that it was, in terms of our debt service, remind that, we are healthy. And so this, it seems, it's a good move, and it's taking care of a problem that we have to solve. So I like that type of statement.
We are extremely healthy with bonds, and wasn't that in our packet here?
Yes.
Eric?
Yeah,
I mean, our percentage is
Yes.
very, very low for what we could be allowed to
And that's
have.
fine by me.
So, it's terrific.
Moving to the end of the agenda, in terms of future agenda or future meetings, if fine with you, Chris and I will meet in late September to determine our October load and then recommend out to you the dates. I'm assuming we will probably have 2 meetings in October. We'll probably have more business before us at that point. So, but we'll get those dates and we'll get them out early to the public.
Sounds good.
So could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any long deliberative discussion on it?
She's
All in
already got her
favor?
hand up.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.